Why don't the lawyers know this? You're not a lawyer. Why would you know this? Lawyers go to law school. They should know this. Um, so at one point, I was actually studying. I was going to do the Catch Me If You Can thing, right? I was going to study for the bar, and I was going to go take it without having to actually gone to law school. Although I say I went to law school because I downloaded it. Like people, there were like students recording their classes and everything, so I'd sit through the whole class and listen to the whole thing, take notes, all that stuff. And I've read a ton of it. So could I pass the bar? I don't know, but that was the plan at one point. And then I realized like this was my problem when I was taking the bar. I was like, okay, so I'm going to use the example of Roe versus Wade, even though that wasn't in there. But like, let's say you have a sample question, right? And you're going to go take the bar exam, and they're like, Roe versus Wade, what is the law based on the Supreme Court ruling, right? And they want you to basically say the law is whatever the Supreme Court said. And it's like, okay, and the reason I use Roe versus Wade is that was overturned recently, right? So basically you want me to believe whatever the Supreme Court said is the law, and that can never be changed. And they're conditioning you. And, of course they're saying like, oh, they can be challenged and, there's a process, but it's like their main purpose is to condition you to that's the way it is and it cannot change. And then when you do this, you become a member of the bar. And if they don't like what you're doing, they will take away your bar license. Yeah. And I know this firsthand from, I guess secondhand. A very good friend of mine was, you could say he was a little bit of a political activist, but he was a lawyer and he defended drug cases and a lot of DUI cases, but a lot of drug cases, possession, distribution, all this other stuff. And he was winning. He was getting not guilties on a lot of major drug charges, right? Mm-hmm. Now, the government hates this because they have this entire war on drugs. They want people locked up for these drug crimes because they need to keep the prisons full and they need to make, their private contracts with the private prisons and all this other stuff. They need to keep this thing going. And if you have a lawyer who's getting everybody out so that they don't have to go to jail, that's a problem. So they actually sent an FBI snitch to go meet him and say, hey, I have a friend who needs a lawyer. They introduced him to somebody else. This FBI snitch basically offered to bribe some judges. My friend said, I don't do that. We're not going to do that. Stop telling people that. The guy said, okay, fine, I'll stop. But then he did it again. My friend reported him to the FBI because he didn't want to get in trouble. The FBI said, don't worry about it. You didn't actually bribe a judge, right? Uh-huh. Next thing you know, because of what this FBI snitch did, my friend is being charged with money laundering. And this is one of those ham sandwich laws. I call them ham sandwich laws because the prosecutors will say like, oh yeah, we can convict a ham sandwich of that, right? You can literally convict a ham sandwich of money laundering because that's how stupid and broad that law is, right? You can convince a jury that anyone did money laundering, right? You, I, anybody else, anybody listening to this podcast, the teacher down the street who loves paying her taxes and loves teaching children and wants to ban guns and everybody get their vaccines. Money laundering, I'm telling you, anyone, right? Nobody is safe from this. But it's like, if you're disrupting the system enough, you're going to prison for it and they'll shut you down. And they didn't have to put him in prison. They could have just taken away his license, right? But they wanted to set an example, and they've done this with doctors. One of the reasons the healthcare system is so screwed up, the DEA, even though the doctors sometimes win, they're afraid of the DEA coming and saying, oh, you've been overprescribing medication when there's no, okay, how many pills is too many? Oh, well, we can't tell you that. Mm-hmm. So, right? So it's just kind of like, okay, so somebody's in pain, they need pain meds, I can't give it to them. And so now they're like, okay, well, my doctor's not going to give it to me. I'm going to go buy the illegal drugs on the street. That's why we have, that's part of the reason why we have an opioid epidemic, right? And it's just because these doctors want to help you. I want to give you the drugs, right? I know you're really in pain. I'm just afraid of the DEA. And it's like they shoot everyone in the foot. They shut down these businesses. They take away our freedom. Sometimes when it's not even the law, just like the implication and like implied fear of people losing licenses. They control everything that way. It's insane. Sorry, that's what I do. If you haven't noticed, I rant.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too, I mean, you're onto something there, because a lot of the reasons why the government is able to get away with abusing people's rights is because the person is too afraid to fight back, or they don't know enough to fight back. A lot of the cases that Donnie handles, a lot of these like they have no idea what's going on. So yeah, I'll take the plea deal, or yeah, I'll pay the fine, or yeah, I won't sue, or I won't do this or that because they think that they don't really have any recourse when in reality they actually do. You just have to be willing to fight it. And that's just how our government operates. I think if more people understood the things that
Yeah.
you're talking about and how laws actually work, the government wouldn't be able to terrify people into allowing their rights to be violated. It's
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, just like you said, like that's the whole reason we have an amendment that says everyone has a right to a lawyer, because before that was there, they would, like, the king's men would go and be like, yeah, we don't like this guy. Let's take him to the court. And he'd stand in the court, and like all these judges that they'd be speaking this legalese language that this guy doesn't understand. Yeah, let's throw him in prison. Let's do this. And everyone's just like, yeah. And then so they ask the guy, okay, what do you want? 1 year or 5 years? And he's like, oh, I have to pick, I guess, 1 year. And they're like, okay, straight to the torture chamber for 1 year, right? And so like they're like, that's not a fair system. Everyone gets a lawyer, right? But now the way it works is you have these prosecutors, and they're doing the same thing. Yeah, we want to throw this guy in prison. Let's put him there. They have no idea what's going on. They're like, I want a lawyer. The prosecutor's like, okay, I'll give you a lawyer. I hired him myself. He works for me. It's absolutely crazy. And like to, and like, okay, a lot of weird stuff has happened to me because I've been in the line of fire so many times. But it's like, for the number of times these like absolutely extreme, ridiculous things have happened, like, it's like you have to understand, like, I'm not some human oddity where like I've just been struck by lightning 50 times, right? And so this I went to go fight a ticket, right? And it was I was going 180 in a 35 technically.
oh,
It was the middle of the desert. It was totally safe, right? There was the only thing there was like out for like hundreds of miles was a gas station and a prison. And I got stopped, and the cop wrote me a ticket for going 90, which I was kind of offended by. I was like, you could have wrote 180, but I'm not going to confess to that right now.
mhm.
So, but anyways, I go to court. They lost their side of the ticket, and the judge is about to dismiss it. And me, like an idiot, when they were like, oh, I can't find it, I was like, well, here's my copy. I have it. Like, I didn't want to just leave and be like, oh, well, what if it comes back to bite me in the ass later, right? I was like,
Right.
here's my copy. And like, shot myself in the foot. The judge is like, I'm just going to dismiss. I don't have a copy of the ticket. This guy stands up and he's like, Your Honor, citation of this magnitude, you really should take to trial. And the judge is like, he's thinking about it, and he's like, I really don't want to, but okay, fine, whatever.
Mm.
So he's like, okay, schedules a date. This guy turns around, hands me the guy who just threw me under the bus, turns around and hands me his business card, and he's like, hi, I'm the public attorney. If you need any help with this case, give me a call.
Wow, what a jackass.
Like, wait a minute. You're supposed to be on my side, and you literally just threw me under the bus. Like, I'm pretty sure I could have had his license revoked at that point for misrepresenting the client or whatever, something like that, right? But it's like, and then I look at his card, and it's like Office of the District Attorney, and then he scratched out the district attorney's name and wrote his name, but it's the same phone number. Like, that's how this. And like I said, I'm not just some like, I know I put myself in a lot of risky situations,
Sure.
but like for stuff like this to happen as often as it happens, like almost every single time, really weird stuff happens. It's because I'm poking the system and trying to see like what it's really made of. And this is the kind of stuff I see. So it's like, that's what it is. Like, it's not just like, okay, yeah. Because I know that's what a lot of people say, like, yeah, but you probably, they try to come up with some excuse in their head, right? It's denial, automatic
It
denial.
happens
Like, no,
way more than you think. And I'm telling you, anybody who's watching this who is thinking that, no, this happens way more often than you think. I mean, Donnie put this on Twitter like last week. Like, a lot of public defenders are actually working for the state or working with the state when they're supposed to be working for you, and a lot of them don't. A lot of them will push you to accept plea deals that the prosecution wants so that they can get their conviction. It happens all the time. It's not all of them. There are a lot of public defenders who actually want to defend their client, but even those people are overworked. They don't have the resources, yada, yada, yada. And so to me, like, the whole public defender system, it's not what you think it is. I guarantee you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's you know, it's like and then it's like, oh, the judge is the neutral party. No, he's not. He's arguing for the prosecutor half the time. It's yeah, it's total nonsense. And especially when it comes to taxes, because the taxes pay for the judge's salary too, right? So it's like it's yeah, it's a total conflict of interest. And you know, it's always like the people versus, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, the people versus Dan Berman. Let's say I was charged with drug possession, right? The people versus Dan Berman. I have a right to be confronted by my accuser. Where's my accuser? Well, here's an officer. He's not my accuser. He's a witness. He claims to have seen me break the law, but who's who's the victim? The people of the state. Okay, well, let's have the people of the state come testify. What do you want the prosecutor? No, the prosecutor is not the people. He's representing the people. He is their lawyer. Where are the people who complained about my cannabis? Yeah, like where? And it's like it's an imaginary system. There's no in like our in a real system of criminal law, it would be no victim, no crime. But what they've done is they've just totally stretched the system out to make it appear as if there's a victim, and like you literally can, like, you think like, oh, a police officer testified that they saw me doing something that violated a law. That just makes him a witness. That doesn't make him, and it's like, oh, witness, accuser, same thing. And it's like, no, an accuser is like, I'm accusing that guy of stealing from me, right? Like that's not a witness, that's an accuser, right? So it's like, who's the accuser when it's like, oh, I was going 5 miles over the speed limit, I had possession of cannabis, I didn't pay my taxes. Who's the accuser? Have them come out here. They don't exist. It's just the government versus us, and it's supposed to be a republic, right? Everyone's like, it's a democracy. It's a constitutional republic, which means, in regards to the public, is literally what a republic means. And it's like, okay, so you're supposed to be working for us. You're only supposed to do things that we tell you to do. Who's telling you to prosecute me? Who has invoked their jurisdiction over me to use you as a weapon against me? Nobody. It's just the law that we passed, and we're going to do it on behalf of the people. But it's like, hey, but the people don't really want it. Most people want to get rid of cannabis prohibition, and it's like, okay, but it's like, you just told me you're doing it on behalf of the people, and the people don't want that law. So it's all bullshit, man. It's all smoke and mirrors.